सागर सब सूख गया है, फिक्र नहीं मुझे तरन की, फिक्र नहीं मुझे तरन की, फिक्र नहीं मुझे तरन की, फिक्र नहीं मुझे तरन की। मीरा के प्रभु गिरिधर नागर, 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 उलट बई मोरे नयन की।
So Swami Muktatmanand Ji, you all heard him in the morning, Bhagavad Gita on Karma Yoga. So Swamiji is here to, not on? Oh, why I could hear clearly, okay. So Swami Muktatmanand Ji is here, is it clear now? Okay. So morning you heard Swamiji on Bhagavad Gita on Karma Yoga. So if you are like to ask any questions, Swamiji is ready to answer your questions. I have a mic here, I can pass it on to you. You can raise your hands and I can bring the mic and give it to you.
Swamiji, what is the practical examples, like day-to-day example for Ishwararpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi? Oh, okay.
Very detailed. So if you can wait, I can answer a little bit, but tomorrow morning itself you will get a very big view of this. What is that attitude of offering, etc.
Chitra, I think Swamiji is Chitra. Swamiji's mic is not on.
It's not on? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
This mic is okay?
It's not on. So why it is important? Attitude of offering.
Hello?
What will be the advantage, etc. All this. How it will help to gain moksha. In which way Karma Yoga helps to gain moksha. How you can go near to Ishvara or Ishvara comes in your life. All these things tomorrow we are going to discuss. Okay, good. So that attitude has been described in Bhagavad Gita beautifully. What should be the attitude towards the result of an action one gains? and what is the attitude which is beneficial to the human being for, attitude of offering behind the action that is beneficial to the human being. Why? Because in today's world, generally the attitude of offering means you will be taken a disadvantage of. That's the situation. And it is true. True. But the person who has that attitude has a different gain in his mind. And therefore, Karma Yoga is only possible for the person who has a single goal called moksha. So for Arthakama, etc., we discussed today, Arthakama, etc., has been dropped. That kind of a pursuit from his mind, the value actually, has been dropped. That's called dispassion. What you want in your life and what you are doing right now, if one can discover no connection, well, then the person has a dispassion. What I am doing right now and what I really want in my life has no connection. If one can discover it, well, it's amazing. That person is a dispassionate. A very great thing. What I am doing and what I want, well, they are matching. Well, that person is really a moodha. He's a deluded guy. What I am doing? Yeah, I am acquiring wealth. For what? Security. Do you think it will give you the security? Yeah, it will give. So what I am right now doing, so gaining money, etc. But what I really want in my life is a freedom from insecurity. And that has no connection. It has no connection. Acquiring money, acquiring relationship, acquiring influence, all this acquiring power, various arrangements around me which can make me feel secure, all these things which are not important, of no importance to me. Actually, I want a freedom from insecurity, and any of this thing cannot make me free from the sense of insecurity which is centered on the self. That person has a dispassion. So that is, this Karma Yoga is a very practical thing, very practical. Without bringing Ishvara into one's life, one cannot gain Ishvara as a moksha. There is a oneness with Ishvara. So first you bring Ishvara into your life, then you become one with it. So two things are there. Karma Yoga brings Ishvara into life, and Jnanam makes you identify with the Ishvara. Once you reach near, then you can become one with it. So Karma and Karma Yoga, the difference is this. In Karma Yogi's life, in his awareness, there is a Ishvara all the time. While doing an action or receiving varieties of the situations in his life as a karma phala. In his awareness, all the time there is a Ishvara. So he is near to Ishvara. Well, then teacher walks in and says, well, you are Ishvara, you are Brahman. That's done. And karma and moksha has no connection. Doing for the sake of gaining securities and pleasures and all that, Ishvara is very far. Maybe he may be also worshipping Ishvara, but for the sake of gaining all this. So that's different. Artho, Artharthi, Jignasu, Jnani cha Bharatarshava. Bhagavan said, all these are my bhaktas, nothing to worry. All are my bhaktas. But Jnani to Atma eva matam. I really like this Jnani, who has become one with him. Ishvara's Atma is a Jnani and Jnani's Atma is Ishvara. And who doesn't love self? Who doesn't love? Everyone loves self. No one loves anything else. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Wherever your love is, it's a fake love. You really love yourself. Because it's unconditional love. Everywhere you love, it's a conditional love. Person has to satisfy the condition in order to be to remain as an object of love from me. That's how, otherwise divorce would not be there. Any object I can throw it. If under certain condition I love a object. But I love myself unconditionally. So Atma is all the time it's an object of love. Any object of love must be the source of joy. That's how we arrive logically. Any object of love must be the source of joy. Otherwise, how you will not love? Therefore, if you love Atma unconditionally in all the situations, therefore Atma must be the source of joy, must be Ananda Sarupa. Anyway, so that is basically, so Bhagavan says, Jnani is, I love him most, because that's Atma. Jnani's Atma is Ishvara, Ishvara's Atma is Jnani. Therefore, Bhagavan said very beautifully, describe all the 4 types of devotees, but ultimately he loves unconditionally because he is Atma. Any question? I initiated some discussion so that you will ask something. Yes.
But you say that when we're doing things, there's no connection between what you're doing and what your goal is.
What you really want in life,
What you
yes.
really want. Then I've heard people say, well, then you're not being really genuine.
You are?
Not being genuine. You're something outside and you're something inside separate. People don't know your motives because...
No, I am talking about in terms of pursuits. I am just talking about...
So doesn't it cause confusion inside? If
It does
this
not.
is my pursuit and this is what I'm doing?
No, basically all other pursuits get dropped.
Okay.
For that sake, all other pursuits get dropped between artha and moksha. What do you really want if you really think? No one loves crutches. Honestly speaking, any object of a security is a crutch for me. No one loves crutches. I want to be independent, but I can't stand on my legs. What can I do?
So the final answer is to divinize everything
Absolutely.
that you are doing.
Correctly. That is
And
what...
then there is no conflict inside.
no conflict.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, I'm done.
Pranam Swamiji.
Yes.
You said bring Ishvara into your life. Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, tomorrow morning, if you can wait, I'm sorry to say that. But I will have a more opportunity to discuss in little more detail. That's the only purpose. So, bringing Ishvara into life means what you do. Well, you should have an attitude of offering. Why you should have an attitude of offering? That's what I'm going to discuss. And behind a result of an action which you receive because of, you did some actions and you receive the result of an action. Well, how the attitude of, gaining as a prasada, etc. from the Ishvara. Why? So that's what I'm going to discuss tomorrow. So that is the only thing. Bringing Ishvara into life means varieties of the situations which you receive in your life. Well, you definitely, in your awareness, there is a Ishvara. When any situation comes in your life. And when you do something also, it's an offering to Ishvara. So in your awareness, again, there is a Ishvara. So this is how, while doing an action or while receiving a result of an action, well, if in your awareness there is a Ishvara, well, we say in your life there is a Ishvara. That's what it is. And that Ishvara is definitely requires a background knowledge. That is not just one form, etc. So bringing Dakshinamurti's form all the time while doing action, etc. Or while, doing some action and going out. And then I first, prostrate to Dakshinamurti that this particular action I'm offering to Ishvara, offering to you, etc. No, not that. Basically, one should have a background knowledge of Ishvara, that Ishvara is the abhinna nimittopadana karanam. He is the efficient cause and the material cause of the entire creation. And therefore, what you confront daily, what you come across, what you experience is Ishvara. So what you receive in your life also is basically given by Ishvara. Because ultimately if everything is Ishvara, all the laws are Ishvara. All the physical laws and psychological laws and every law is Ishvara. And so even right now I'm speaking something, well, and you are able to hear the words, or the words are produced because of law. That law itself is Ishvara. So basically I did an action of speaking, but the result of an action, that's the sound, production of the sound, etc., is due to law. And laws are all part of the creation. And that Ishvara alone is this creation, because that's a material. There will be, and there cannot be any other material other than, Ishvara is an efficient cause. And let's say the material comes from somewhere else. That will have a logical, regress. It's just, they call it anavastha. Material cannot be separate from Ishvara. We'll see that tomorrow also. Material cannot be separate, and therefore he only has to be material. He only has to be maker. And so maker and material, if he is, then everything is Ishvara, including laws. And then definitely whatever action is will-based, correct. To speak or not to speak is depending upon me. But once I speak, then the sound is produced with the laws. So definitely the karma phala, the production of the sound, well, it has come from the laws. And law itself is Ishvara. And therefore this karma phala has come from Ishvara. So this background knowledge of Ishvara is very essential. That Ishvara is abhinna nimitta upadana karanam. He is the efficient cause and he is the material cause. Maker and material is one. That's very essential, and it has to be clear also. Then only karma yoga is possible. Otherwise, difficult, very difficult. Looking upon Ishvara as one form, sitting somewhere, etc. If that is a thing in my mind, then it's, well, you can do with a certain bhavana, etc. You can do a karma offer to Ishvara, etc. Like we are doing Archana to one form. We are doing. But this Archana is a little different. It is in form of karmas. And before offering itself, we should know what he is doing. What Ishvara is doing, I would like to know. Well, if he is offering all the time, then definitely he is giving me message. He is doing a WhatsApp to me. Well, you cannot call him. But you just look around and you find what he is doing 24/7. So we'll see that. There is a principal note which is prevalent in the whole creation. And human being has to pick up that note. And then only he is in harmony with the whole creation. That is Ishvara. Once he is in harmony with the creation, well, definitely he is near to Ishvara. Whoever the person is there, if you are in harmony with that person, you are very near to that person, or that person is very near to you. And therefore, this is, so we should get a message from Ishvara himself, that what he is doing all the time, how my life is sustained, how my existence is possible. And therefore, well, I should also do. It's basically, if I tell you, it's just a common sense. It's a common sense. Even following universal values also is a common sense ethics, Pujya Swamiji says. Common sense ethics. It is not, you are not obliging to anybody by speaking truth and by being honest. You are obliging to yourself. One is obliging to oneself. No one is obliging to anybody. Following certain values, moral values, etc., conforming to the universal values, one is definitely helping oneself. And that is also a part of the Karma Yoga. So first I will talk about universal values, conforming to universal values, how we'll cut down your likes and dislikes. That is essential to know. And then later, well, other things also. Other things in terms of certain duties which we are doing. What should be the attitude behind those duties, etc. And lastly I will talk about basically 5 types of Mahayajnas that you know, which has been talked in the Veda itself. And as a result of that, this yajnas has to be done, which is called Karma Yoga only. So this is way. If you can wait, I will talk in the morning, and so.
Next question, Swamiji. Is insecurity and greed are the same?
No, well, definitely greed is due to insecurity. I would say the insecurity is a basic feeling and centered on the self person has, and that will definitely bring the greed, etc. also. Insecurity is a basic thing. Greed does not bring insecurity. Insecurity brings a greed. Even to be angry also. So that's how they say the human problem, basically the basic human problem is of insecurity. Some people say, some of our acharyas only say like that. That basic problem of a human being is it all the time feel insecure. So he either becomes a defensive, offensive, etc. or other negative emotions also arise because of the basic sense of insecurity. That is born of wrong notion. I am insecure is a wrong notion. That is born of ignorance. Any wrong notion is born of ignorance. And if you say I am insecure, then definitely you feel the self is insecure. Then there must be self-ignorance. Because you have a wrong notion centered on the self. And definitely therefore self-ignorance must be there. And so basically one has to remove the self-ignorance, which will bring down all these wrong notions. That is moksha. That is moksha. One has to be free from the notions that I am not insecure. That is moksha. I am free from the insecurity is moksha. I am free from the death is moksha. I am free from this limitation is moksha. So basically dropping the wrong notions with the help of the teacher and the scriptures, definitely, that is enough because you are self-evident. You are basically free, but because of the self-ignorance, you take yourself to be otherwise. So you have to drop those wrong notions. That's all. You are not to do anything. How to create moksha and etc. So that's how we were discussing in morning. So you are free. So drop this hot potato from your hand of a wrong notion. That's the only thing to be done. And that wrong notion does not get dropped so easily because it's an habit. Any habit takes time to go. And so ignorance is beginningless. So wrong notions also born of ignorance also beginningless. And therefore they don't go. And so sometimes we feel the knowledge is not practical. It is practical. But it takes time. You should wait and put efforts. Basically nididhyasanam, etc. Day after tomorrow I will talk a little bit about this also. So nididhyasanam is very essential to drop the wrong habits which has gone to subconscious mind. Any habit is not just in a conscious mind. In conscious mind we have all this knowledge. I am Brahman and I'm this and etc. All this is there. In fact, you can even talk better than me. Person can talk better than me even. But same emotional issues are still there. So that shows in the personality all issues have gone percolated to a subconscious level. And therefore to bring out from the subconscious mind, one needs to undergo this nididhyasana. Constantly addressing these problems, reliving the teaching is very essential. But that reliving the teaching which has become free from the doubts. Yeah. If teaching itself is doubtful, Shastra says, that you are Brahman. But when I sit for meditation, I don't think I am Brahman. Shastra is telling that's one thing. And Swami is telling, so I may accept it. But I don't think so. Then where is the question of doing nididhyasana? So mananam is very important to remove the doubts. Your intellect has to be convinced that yes, I am Brahman, etc. And then definitely reliving the teaching, etc., dwelling upon the teaching will be helpful. Because now those obstacles are not there. Doubts, etc. are intellectual hazards, obstruction. That has to go. Then emotional issues. So, that's how all the three in the Jnanam, the Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam, all the three have a very big role to play. Just by Shravanam, knowledge can occur, well, maybe somebody, but that's very rare thing. Just by listening, Mahavakya, etc., that you are Brahman and the person gains knowledge, he just walks away. Well, I am Brahman. That's very difficult. One has to go through the process. But the very process itself is very joyful. Because while in the process itself, at least your wrong notions, even if they have not gone away, but they have loosened. That is what the meaning of the word Upanishad also. Right? The Saddhatu has a meaning in which the first meaning they give is loosening all these wrong notions, knots. And then basically you separate them. That's all. Or they destroyed. The knots are destroyed. But before they are destroyed, they will become loose. So all our wrong notions, each one is a knot. First they get loosened in this process. That is so it gives you a lot of joy. Otherwise, this journey becomes very tiresome. Journey becomes very tiresome. But here, if you do it on a regular basis, you find that now you are more comfortable in varieties of the situations. Now those issues, emotional issues like anger, etc., or a greed or a jealousy, etc., they don't come so often. Or even if they come, their intensity is low. Even if the intensity is there, the recovery period is low. All this. So that is how frequency decreases of wrong emotion. Intensity of the wrong emotions or negative emotions decreases. And the recovery period also is faster. So then definitely you will enjoy. So that is how the process itself is a joyful. And then one is no more ignorant of oneself. Well, then Nididhyasanam has done its job. Yes.
Oh, okay. Swamiji?
Yes.
So this question doesn't have anything to do with what we talked about today. But in my biology class, we talk a lot about evolution and the idea that all these scientists say that we evolved from small, tiny cells because of mutations and mistakes in the genetic code and everything, and eventually we became humans just by chance. And I've struggled to find a consistent answer in Hinduism about what the take is and what we should believe about evolution. So could you answer what your take is?
Generally, we go by like this. When we use the word creation, we always say the things are put together in the creation. It may be an atom, or it may be even a subatomic particle. Anything. It's all put together. Atom is put together by particles, and then molecule is put together by atoms, and then that's how. The creation, in which our basic premise is this. It is intelligently put together. Intelligently put together. And therefore it is not just a by chance the things have just mass up and then it just came out like that. We find this entire creation is a well-designed thing. And therefore even the fish has been given a gill for the breathing, and we have been given nostrils. All this we find everything has been well planned and put in a proper place. And therefore if it is a wonderful design and must be things are, if you find in a proper place, then definitely somebody's intelligence is there behind it. That's what we say. Well, definitely where have we gone to see that intelligent creator? We don't say, we assume. Definitely we assume. Because nobody has seen the Ishvara is creating. Because we are part of the creation. Definitely. But this is our premise. That the whole creation is an intelligent design, which is all put together and put together intelligently. But how can you say it is intelligently put together? Because it is serving a certain purpose. everything in the creation serves a certain purpose. And therefore, there must be a intelligent designer, creator, who has designed this. That's how we go. And therefore, we don't go by the theory of evolution, because it is by chance. Everything is by chance, ultimately in that. We say it is not. We say the systematical evolution of the whole creation from the Ishvara alone, because Ishvara is a material also. So, this is our premise. And that way, we differ from the scientist. Definitely differ. I mean, well, they can say then you are assuming Ishvara, etc. Then we say you are also assuming. Science also has done thousands of assumptions. Well, they give a whole theory of evolution, etc. is also an assumption with a certain their perceptual data, whatever. And based on the perceptual data, they do inference, etc. That is what the science is ultimately. And therefore, basically, they also go by, everyone has to assume, because nobody was there before the creation. And therefore, scientists also have to assume. Then we also assume, no problem. But we assume and ultimately try to see the whole thing as a intelligent manifestation of the Ishvara. And that manifestation of Ishvara is basically helping me in my life to gain the goal of life. Well, so that is our thing, and that is different from, well, definitely scientists.
So just a quick follow-up. So Christians, like, they believe that that God had created humans completely separately from, animals. Is that the same in Hinduism? Do we believe that God created humans, and then, or do we still believe that there was, like you said, a perfect manifest for us to evolve under the guidance of Ishvara, or,
yes.
or do we think that God had?
We should remember that at every step you have to say God manifested, not created. Why? Because He is the material also. So if He's just a maker, like I am a maker of this, then you can question several things. Why you are making like this, etc., etc. But I only manifest in this form, then where is the question? Like, so maker and material are both one. So it is rather than Ishvara created human being and Ishvara created that and this, and well, we say Ishvara alone manifests in all the forms. That's a different type of a thing that resolves several issues. If Ishvara, who is a creator, is different from the creation, then definitely why he created like this and etc. Several issues will come. And that is how no religion is able to answer. And all questions are valid. Because looking at the creation and looking at the pandemic and looking at the COVID-19, who will say that Ishvara created all this? Well, it is very difficult. The people have lost their lives and so much of things, But if Ishvara has alone manifested in the form of everything, the victim and the, victimizer, what we say? Both are Ishvara. Then where is the question of somebody is a victim and somebody is a victimizer, etc. So this is our answer. And this answer is only in Hinduism. If one accepts or not, that's a different issue. But this is answer we have, that Ishvara alone is a creator and Ishvara alone is a creation. So all is his manifestation. And therefore there is no question of doing injustice, etc. They say several things. Ishvara is created and then now some few people are suffering and few are not suffering and this and that. But ultimately that injustice is also, if you say there is injustice is done to the one who is also Ishvara. And therefore, ultimately manifestation is a best thing. So in Vedanta especially, we generally don't use the word creation or creator, etc. We say he alone has manifested in the form of world, universe. So if you have some questions, please ask.
No, that was good, Swamiji. That's all.
Swamiji, a quick, not a quick question. We've been coming here for now several years, and what I get at IVA and Gita study course, we come here and attend the lectures. But I look at it like, for me as a person, I'm looking at my spouse to change. So what shall we do about that?
What?
For my spouse to change. Or my spouse thinks, I should change. Because we are coming
here.
That's the same question that we talk about it all the time here. But it's always there, that your spouse is always asking you to change.
That's correct. But generally, Vedanta, I mean the person, seeker, especially the seeker of the truth or the seeker who is in the process of getting liberated or gaining freedom, etc., he gives freedom relatively to all, whatever they are. So to gain an absolute freedom, you start giving freedom to the people for what they are, basically. And therefore you don't have you may have an expectation that the person should change in a certain fashion. But you may not have that insistence that the person must change. That is sufficient. So Swamiji, I remember Puja Swamiji's words that, if you want a freedom, you give freedom to others, something like that. I don't remember now completely. But in order to be free, you give freedom to others. That's what he told. And that's very correct. Very correct. Why? Because basically, ultimately, everything is basically manifestation of the self or manifestation of Ishvara. In that case, the person who is a seeker, he has a little broader vision about everything. And very basic virtue a person should have to gain this knowledge that I am Brahman, I am limitless, etc. He should have an accommodation, at least for the people, because ultimately you are going to look upon the entire creation as yourself. Now in a vyavahara itself, in a transaction itself, you are not able to stand some person, because of a certain attitude, or then definitely the vision that he and me are basically one alone, or I alone as manifested in that form is next to impossible. And so kshama, etc., accommodation is a very, very, very important virtue, especially a seeker of Vedanta. One should that a person should have this value of accommodating others. And when you accommodate others, then whatever they are, you basically accept them as they are. So let your spouse basically, or whoever, let he or she, other person also may have the expectation towards you, but you can drop slowly. Insistence that the person should change, etc. And this never worked. It has never worked. In fact, it to the extent that it also it makes me bother in meditation also. When you start meditating, and those people only, they all pop up in the mind. Basically, they only pop up. So to the person basically you have some dissatisfaction in terms of his language or attitude or anything. They only pop up in the mind. Ishvara does not pop up in meditation. And that's how in the pre-meditative meditation technique, basically they say to drop what is outside, you keep it outside. That's what Bhagavan said in the 6th chapter. I think 5th chapter end perhaps. What he says sparshan krutva bahir bahyan sparshan bahihi krutva. The objects which are external, keep them external. But they are external. Where is the question of keeping them external? But they are inside. They all the time travel with us. And so our expectations or insistence about the people, and so that they change, etc. Those things keep them in our mind. Keep them all the time. They remain in our mind, basically. So at least on our side, generally that's a condition. If you drop the expectation for me, I will drop expectation for you. But that never works. That never works that way. We only have to drop it. Whatever the person is, we'll have to accept. As that's how Puja Swamiji used to tell, before meditation, you bring your father and mother and husband and wife and say, I accept my father or I accept my husband as he is right now. Right now means in this meditation. And then only they are dropped. Otherwise, they won't get dropped. They remain in the mind. So that is what... that was a few steps before meditation. This was one of the steps. Yes.
Yeah, Swamiji used to say, the more freedom you give.
Huh.
Yeah. Can you hear me? The more freedom you give for others, that much you are free.
Yes, that's what I am saying.
Yeah.
So for absolute gaining freedom, we have to accommodate everyone. Ultimately, that is the thing.
So to gain absolute freedom means basically you are free. In time wise you are free, space wise you are free, no object wise you have limitation. Basically you are free from all types of limitation. To gain that freedom, to know that freedom rather, to know that freedom which is centered on the self, basically relatively one should give a freedom, and that is called accommodation. That's what Bhagavan told as a kshantihi in the moral values. So he said amanittam, adambittam, ahimsa, kshantihi. That kshantihi is equal to kshama, is equal to accommodation. It's not forgiveness, etc. It's just accommodation. Whatever the person is, whoever he is, whatever type of attitude, language, etc. Habits. Sometimes we have a complaint for the habits also. Swamiji, the way I don't know whether his parents has taught anything to that person or not. And so we say all like that. But so sometimes food habits, sometimes way of talking, other attitudes, sometimes even a dress, etc., wearing certain and you don't like it. So many ways of complaining. So give relative freedom in terms of accommodation in order to be free totally.
Swamiji, can you explain Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam?
Yes. Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. So Kaushalam here means dexterity, but basically you do a karma in such a way so that karma should not be able to bind you. Karma should not create you new ragadveshas. Karma should not be able to bind you. That's way. That is called Kaushalam. Kaushalam is basically you should have a skill, and that skill is not in terms of an action. A skill is in terms of an attitude behind the action. And that attitude is basically Ishwararpana Buddhi, offering, etc., which I am going to talk in the morning. So that is a one definition. There are, Karma Yoga's several definitions Bhagavan gave. This is one of the definition. Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. That's another definition. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, equanimity while receiving the result of an action. While doing an action, this kind of a attitude of offering, etc., should be there. That is called the skill in action, Kaushalam. So with respect to karma, this Kaushalam, and with respect to receiving the result of an action, Samatvam. So that is how Bhagavan gave these two definitions of Karma Yoga in the chapter 2.
Swamiji, how to define Swadharma, how to understand Swadharma, and how to live that?
Yeah, Swadharma is basically one's own duties, basically. One's own duties. And those duties are generally burdensome for everyone, generally. And because the behind that duty or action, basically it is an action. So behind that action, a particular attitude should be there which is not there, and that is how even all our duties also, especially in India, which is duty-bound society, well, all those duties have really become a burden. And we really feel relaxed when all the duties get over, etc. Right? We feel relaxed so much. So even the parents, the day the girl gets married, daughter gets married, they feel so relaxed. So, that is how it is. And so basically duty is so much burdensome because a certain common sense, common sense, let's say common sense is not there. Let me say that. It's not fair. But, we'll see tomorrow. That whatever you do, basically one should have an attitude of offering, and it is basically you are indebted with with a lot of things in this creation. Almost whole our life is totally under debt, and therefore whatever you do for the creation, ultimately for the people or whatever, is ultimately you are paying back, and so that part we'll see tomorrow. That morning we'll see that thing tomorrow.
And how does loving kindness meditation affect this?
Pardon?
Loving kindness meditation. How does it help in Karma Yoga?
Well, Karma Yoga, we never talk about any meditation, etc. for Karma Yoga, etc. For the self, basically our meditation is just centered on the self, true nature of the self, which we have, which we have received through the teaching, what we know about the self now, as a true self, what we know, that has to be assimilated. For that we do meditation, that is there. But for karma yoga, etc., well, I don't think Swamiji also, Puja Swamiji has given any meditation. I don't remember. Ishvara's meditations are there. Puja Swami's meditations are there. Yeah, they are there. But that is in form of order, varieties of the order. And well, that is there. But for karma yoga, etc., well, but in general, you can say, well, they always say like this. If you don't have a certain good attitude or a virtue in you, first you fake it till you make it. That's what Puja Swamiji's sutra is. Fake it, as if I'm a very loving person. Fake it. And really it works. Really it works. So, and well, many things in the creation we are doing like this. The reality is something else and we superimpose something else. In fact, a dollar bill is what? It's just a paper. It's a paper only. That's the reality of the thing, that it is paper. But we have superimposed so much value on it. And even that in India, of course, on the promissory notes, the governor is to sign. I hereby promise rupees 500 something, So it says superimposition of a value. It's just a paper. And on Ishvara itself, you imagine. Like, suppose if I say this, the Lord Dakshinamurti. Now, just, go little objectively. It is just basically a stone, right? It's a stone. But a teacher has told you, Shastra has told you that this is a particular form of Ishvara. And you superimpose Ishvara on stone, really speaking, right? And that is basically, we are faking actually that there is Ishvara. But it works. It works. It works. Then the people who have worshipped Dakshinamurti, they know that it works. And all the devotees ultimately they go by the words of scripture, words of the devotee, other devotees, words of their gurus, and they worship in a particular form as a Ishvara. And they definitely reach to the heights in devotion, etc., in bhakti, etc. So this is good. Fake it till you make it. So this is how one can do. Well, I am a very loving person. That meditation, that kind of a meditation, will definitely help. But we generally don't have, any meditation related to karma yoga, etc. Well, for Ishvara we have, definitely. Over? Questions? Then shall we end here now? Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Namaste. Please hold on. There are few announcements.